Okay, guys, welcome back to the second episode of the Breakdown podcast here on BS Rugby. And it's an exciting day in the rugby calendar as the Lions squad was announced today, a 37-man squad, not a 36-man squad. And joining me today is Kyle from Capo Starkey Rugby. Kyle, how are you doing, man? A happy Scotsman today, I assume?
Yes, very happy, very proud of our eight players who will be picked on the tour. Nice to see Gatland's actually going and taking us to our decent form away into consideration. And I think also the fact that two of our coaches are on the coaching team as well, I think played a factor in 8 Scots going too. So yeah, just nice to have more than 2 or 3 going. How many we'll get in the test side, we'll see later on. We'll see later in the series.
Indeed, we shall. If you're watching here on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video and check out Kyle's channel, all linked down below. We're also on Spotify and other platforms, so make sure if you're listening there to give us a like, review. If you're watching it on YouTube, do head over there and give us a like and review as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through all the different positions. We're going to take a look who's been included and talk about some of the big omissions, because there's a few names there for sure that haven't made the squad. So let's start off with the fullback positions. First off, I think we both expect him to start for the Lions. It's Stuart Hogg. No surprise there, is there?
No, not at all. I mean, he's been, just really grown as a captain for Scotland, as we've discussed before on several occasions. For Exeter's form's been brilliant. He's shown, as we both watched the recent match, Exeter against Wasp, where like he can make a mistake, but later on he's very quickly to look to make up for it, and he had an excellent second half of that game. And again, just his all-round game. Some still say he's a bit suspect under the high ball, but I think that's, sort of an area he's very capable of. But because he is one of those players that still, you get in the team, like he has the ball, something could happen here, and you'll keep those, the South African defence on their toes at all times. And, with his kicking ability as well out of hand, you'll be keeping them backpedaling like consistently. If any loose kicks go down South Africa's way, or he sort of gets a bit of space to put a long spiraling punt in when there's no real other options on. And so I think pretty inevitable choice there. Yeah,
Hogg was pretty obvious. Probably the best fullback in the world right now, in my opinion. The other options at fullback, someone who could play on the wing but also could play at fullback, is Anthony Watson, Bath and England. One of the shining lights for me for England doing a really poor Six Nations. Not much of a surprise there. He's been on a tour before. You happy with his inclusion?
Yeah. As you said, one of England's better players in recent times. Played very well in the last Lions tour as well. He's always England, one of England's more consistent performers. It does very well considering like he plays fullback for Bath. He shifts to the wing for England. Which is I think a lot harder to do than a lot of folk appreciate. But obviously, a very excellent finisher, great feet, great pace, very solid under the high ball, which I think with the South Africans kicking, that will be a big factor on this tour as well.
Yeah, indeed. I have no problem with Anthony Watson being in there. I think he's a fantastic inclusion. The next one's a bit of a difficult one and a bit of an interesting one. One of the first controversial ones, maybe. It's Elliot Daly. Now, someone who did struggle in the Six Nations. We'll talk about the Saracens situation as well. A lot of players not playing all that much rugby and playing in the Championship. Your thoughts on Elliot Daly? An interesting addition, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more for his versatility because he can play all across the 3/4 line and fullback, and obviously his big left boot as well, a big factor. And that with how he played on the last Lions tour, it could be a thing between him and Stuart Hogg as to who having that long range goal kicking option. I think also it's like the whole thing about credit in the bank as well, like which folk were talking about, in the course of the week. I think Elliot Daly certainly apply. When you think of him, he certainly applies to that. With considering he's not been playing well at all this year, from what I've seen. I understand with Saracens, albeit it's in the Championship, he's been getting a bit better the past few weeks. But Six Nations, he definitely wasn't at his best. So I don't actually see Gatland really using him as a fullback. I think he'll more be used as on the left wing or outside centre, possibly. I think really mostly just there for his versatility, I'd say. And obviously, he's a quality player if you can get him in form.
Yeah, and his kicking, as you said, from distance is something that's really important, especially with the likes of a Halfpenny. Obviously, he was never going to be in the squad. And we're not even going to mention him as an absentee in the squad, but not having someone like that with that distance kicking, putting someone like Daly in, if you need someone to get a kick from 50 odd metres out, he's going to be able to do that. And then the final fullback option then is Liam Williams. Wales and Scarlets, Welshman, not particularly surprised at this at all. Very good player. Good under the high ball, decent boots on him. Maybe a little bit of a hothead. Maybe he can be got out, especially if Faf de Klerk's in his face, saying a few things that could get quite interesting. But your thoughts on Liam Williams? Not a surprise inclusion, is he?
No, not at all. And again, just with his reputation, how he did in the last Lions tour, how solid on his day he is under the high ball. Like he's excellent attacking fullback as well. As you said, with the hot-headedness, that's stuff kind of he needs to, tailor in, because he seems to have, been more of a thing recently with, just how he's, as you've mentioned, the stuff he's getting into. And I'd say in the Six Nations against Scotland, he was a bit lucky not to get a red card when he went in with Darcy Graham, very similar to the one Finn Russell did get red carded for Scotland against France. But no, I think, sort of just with his ability, his reputation, it was inevitable he was going to be one of the choices going. And Gatlin always seems to know how to get the best out of him.
Yeah, indeed. I think that's the big thing. We're seeing a lot of players here who have played under Gatlin before, who may not be in the best of form right now, but Gatlin knows how to get the best out of them. And let's talk about some of the absentees. Really only three we could think about. The first being Jordan Larmour, who maybe only just gets into the conversation, to be honest. Playing okay for Leinster, but playing mostly on the wing, but has played at fullback for Ireland. Your thoughts on him? Was he ever really a consideration for this tour? Or has he just not quite been at the level, do you think?
Outside chance, I'd say more as a winger, because he played fullback last year and he looked like, he was as an attacker on the up. But I mean, the last, 6-7 months or so, he's more played on the wing with one of the other mentions, what I'm sure we'll get into, Keenan at fullback. Very good finisher. I think not quite there for the Lions yet. I didn't expect him to be considered.
Hugo Keenan. I thought he had a fantastic Six Nations for Ireland. Looked pretty solid at fullback. Been very good for Leinster. 22 years old, I believe, or 21 years old. So a young lad. Will he be disappointed, or do you think because he's so young, he's likely to go on a few tours in the future?
Well, I think anyone missing out would be disappointed, but no, I think that again, as you say, because he's a young player, so he got a lot of prospect. He showed already he's got a lot of ability, he was definitely in the conversation for me as a possible outsider. I don't think he's quite Lions ready yet, but I mean, 4 years time, if he keeps working away and doing what he's doing, who knows? We could be talk about him as one of the best fullbacks in the world, possibly. But again, that's for another day. I think he's not quite there yet, but he's definitely on the right roads. Yeah,
I agree with you. And a name you threw at me just before we went recording, Max Malins. Obviously, England's fullback, started at fullback for England during these Six Nations, but in the end kind of drifted away. I never had this name in my mind. What are your thoughts on Malins?
No, just with how he played for England against France in the Six Nations when he came in for Elliot Daly. Fairly cold in terms of starting in international rugby, and he came in. He had an excellent game. Sadly, was injured for the following week against Ireland. But no, I thought, with that performance there and how he's generally been playing this season for Bristol, I think, that was kind of in my thoughts. But again, more of an outside chance. I didn't ever expect him to be considered.
No, not at all. Let's move on to the wingers. The first name then we'll go with is Josh Adams. No surprise from me. Done very, very well under Gatland. Quickly on Josh Adams, no surprise for you either, I assume?
No, not at all. Just, make sure he, sort of the stuff with his gender of his baby, just make sure he's, he knows about if there's another child. Anyway, we don't have to get into that if you don't want to, it's fine. But no, I think, as a rugby player, as a finisher, another one who's very solid under the high ball. Gatland obviously knows, again, how to get the best out of him, as he did in 2019 with Wales, but he had an absolutely storming year that year. Is it 8 tries he scored in the whole year, something like that? So yeah, just again, a proven player, great finisher, and absolutely no surprise at all, and he definitely deserves to go, I think.
Indeed. Let's stick in Wales then. Louis Rees-Zammit, very young, exciting player coming through, had a fantastic Six Nations, very good for Gloucester, and Gloucester really struggled this season. Louis Rees-Zammit's an interesting one. Defensively, maybe hasn't been tested enough. We don't really know what he's going to be looking like defensively. Your thoughts on Louis Rees-Zammit? He's got pace to burn, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I've been saying to you before, Brandon, I think he's got a very good rugby brain as well. He's definitely getting better all the time. He's just one of those players that, you just look at him, you just see he's got a raw talent about him. Just, his not just his pace, as you say, his step. He's good with ball in hand. And as I was saying, he looks like he's really switched on up there. Really has an ability to read the game in the right areas. He always is looking for work as well. Under the high ball, I still think that probably ties in with what you're saying defensively. I think it's still an area of his game we've not seen as much of. I think he's capable, but I think it could be an area if he starts the test. The South Africans will look to test him more there. I think he'll get some practice going into the test series. But as I said, if he proves himself and scores tries as he does, it's going to be impossible for Gatland to ignore him. So yeah, they definitely deserve to go on form.
Definitely. And for you now, the next big name, Duhan van der Merwe. How happy are you to see him? Because in my initial squad, he was not in there, but I've changed my mind, so I'm happy that he's in there. Top try scorer in the Six Nations. I think most meters made. I think something like that as well. Against his country of his birth as well. How happy are you for him?
Oh, very, very happy indeed. I thought, as I said, he's been playing that way for Edinburgh for a good 2-3 years, and it was it was sort of inevitable really. He was going to get the Scotland call once he was eligible through the residency rules. Just since he's come in, he's just looked absolutely at home in international rugby. Again, as we've discussed before, still question marks over his defensive positioning. I think he is a capable tackler, but too often he gets himself caught either too narrow or he just doesn't show enough balls to absolutely smash a player backwards when he has the chance. Under the high ball, he has his moments of being a bit suspect as well. But I think generally, as a player, if you can get him the ball in hand, whether that's out on the wing or him cutting in off his wing, because he's certainly as capable as any of the back rower in terms of making meters when need be. And and as you say, he scores tries almost for fun as well. So if you can get him the ball in a bit of space or up against Cheslin Colby, maybe in the size factor, if you're going for brute strength, I'd be more nervous if it was the other way around, Colby with the ball against Duhan. But so I think if you can get him up against Colby, just showing strength, I think he could certainly be a big player there and certainly make an impact.
Yeah, indeed. Some of the absentees are interesting. The first name I want to throw at you is Johnny May. Johnny May, we had a quick discussion before we started recording. He was in my original squad and I changed him for Duhan van der Merwe. But I think Johnny May is absolutely electrifying. He's a really good finisher. Are you surprised he's not in the squad, or do you just think the other players ahead of him are just in form and Gatland maybe has looked at form a little bit more with the wingers?
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised he's not there. I think, in terms of offering something different, I think he offers similar to Josh Adams, although in terms of pace, I think he's a quicker player than Adams, but in terms of consistency under the high ball and his all-round solidity of his game, I think Josh Adams is generally a lot better player. But no, like I said, I'm not really surprised because even though he scored a couple of good tries in the Six Nations, I just think there's just been more informed options ahead of him, and as I say, he's not been playing in the best team this year. Had a terrible game against Scotland, if I remember rightly, and so again, no surprise in my view.
No. The two other names for me probably aren't really serious options. The first one, Keith Earls, really because of his ability to play a variety of positions, but also very experienced at this level as well. He'll always give you 6, 7 out of 10. He never does anything ridiculous, but he doesn't do anything stupid either. Do you think he's worth a mention, or as we said about the others? Do you think so?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought, the way he played in the Six Nations, he looked like he was definitely in the conversation as a possibility. I think in terms of that X factor, the four main wingers, if you want to include Liam Williams, that's five wing fullback. Sort of have a bit more of an X factor than Keith Earls does. But, Keith Earls is a very, very solid player, a very intelligent player as well. So I think he can be considered somewhat unlucky, but also age isn't always on his side either, because I think he's going to be 34 later this year. Mm. But no, as I say, he can be considered unlucky because he is a very good player and, was pushing. I didn't think he would quite get in either, but I think he was pushing just to be maybe there or thereabouts.
Yeah, and the final player that I could think of was Jack Nowell. Now, someone who hasn't played much rugby at all. He's played one game this season for Exeter. If I'm correct in saying that, do correct me in the comments. I'm sure you will. But Jack Nowell, for you, just not enough rugby is there for him?
No. I mean, I know Rob Baxter said if you can get him fit, he'd be up and ready in time for the Lions. But again, I think it's something that needs more than just a few games back after injury before he should be going for the Lions. I think just the fact he's not played in a while, he's only just started playing again, wasn't really going to be a consideration.
No, not at all. Centres are an interesting one. Very, very interesting. There's a few absentees, few interesting inclusions in there. First one, we got to talk about it. It's Bundee Aki. Thoughts on Bundee Aki? Did you even think about him before?
I did actually. If you look at my initial 40-man squad video, I had him going if Manu Tuolangi wasn't fit to go. However, I did kind of change my mind later on. I thought, maybe should I? Because I got a few, mainly because I got a few comments of folks saying Bundee Aki is useless and all that. But no, I mean, I'm not surprised really, because I know Gatland loves his bash-up centres, and when you look at the other options available, if you're just going by form and ability, there wasn't really any others bash-up 12s, like a Jamie Roberts type player available to choose from, really. And obviously Bundee Aki with his reputation, Grand Slam winner 2018 with Ireland, one could argue a bit of a liability with how he tackles sometimes with his shoulder charge. But I think, it doesn't hugely surprise me, I have to be honest there. I did think he would be a bit of an outside chance.
Gatland always has liked that big bash number 12. Think about Jamie Roberts for Wales. I didn't think he'd get into the Lion squad, Jamie Roberts, but definitely, similar in that style. We'll do that. The next one for you as a Scotsman, you should be pretty happy with Chris Harris. I thought he had a very good Six Nations and defensively looked really, really solid. 30 years old. You said he's coming into his peak at this age. What do you think he can offer to the tour? And were you surprised at his inclusion as well?
No, I wasn't. I think, the fact that Steve Tandy, the defence coach of the tour, works with him regularly. I have to say Steve Tandy coming in as Scotland defence coach has really improved some players' game. Chris Harris being the most notable one, I'd say. But no, he's been brilliant. I think I'd argue he's probably the best defensive 13 in the Northern Hemisphere right now. Some might disagree with me there, but that's what I think. And just his positional play, as he showed when he played against France, like how he, reads the game, and he seems to have that great balance about knowing when to drift, when to, smash up, and it knows that if he's going up on his own, he has to nail the guy or take the ball. If you miss both, then you're screwed, basically. Also, I think his attack play doesn't get the credit it deserves sometimes, because he has got very, very good feet. He runs decent angles. He does the linking work very well. For example, if there's a flanker or a winger makes a break outside, he'll be there as the support runner. He might not necessarily always get there himself into a decent position, but if he's got others inside him who are a bit quicker, he can put them in a bit more space to cause more damage. So no, I think it's a really, really good choice. I'm not surprised at all.
No, not at all. And I think one of the most obvious names that we thought were going to be in there and probably will start at 12 for the Lions on form, it's Robbie Henshaw. No surprise for me, probably the best player in his position in the world right now. Played some fantastic stuff during the course of the Six Nations. Nominated for European Player of the Year as well. Robbie Henshaw is just an obvious inclusion, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the form centre, in Britain right now, Robbie Henshaw. I mean, I think it's an interesting one because sort of. I mean, you think like sort of looking at the standout 13s. I mean, Chris Harris, Robbie Henshaw can play 12 and 13, and Elliot Daly can play 13, and you're just thinking that's more or less it there. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see whether he plays 13 and Farrell or Aki at 12 in the tests. But no, I mean, I think he'll be one of the centre spots in the test, no doubt, unless barring injury, of course, because he's been absolutely brilliant in his all-round game.
Yeah, indeed. Right, some of the absentees. There are 3 big names that I could think about. We've got to talk about the first one, a Welshman, Foxy, Jonathan Davis not in there. Now, I will say as a Welshman, I'm not particularly surprised because he's not been playing in form. He's had so many injuries, and the most recent game he played against the Dragons, I know it's the Rainbow Cup. I know it's difficult to really understand where players are at in that, but he just looks so off it. Like physically, fitness-wise, looks so off it. We know he's a world-class player. We know he's got a heck of a left boot on him. And I don't want to say he's past it because I don't believe that. I think you can get the best out of him still. But for this tour, I just think there are better options ahead of him. Jonathan Davis, just not in form, is he?
No, that's one of the ones that did surprise me because I thought, obviously, another one Gatland knows how to get the best out of. I would have thought he would have maybe just... He would have just got on the tour, just on that mainly, and the fact he was the player of the series in the last Lions tour as well. But no, I think I agree with you in regards to his recent form. It's even in the Six Nations, like he was not terrible, but he wasn't like great at all. He just sort of came back. He played 12, which I'll be honest, I think suited him a little bit more because he doesn't look as quick as he used to. I have to say, I think pace wise he's definitely slowed down a bit since coming back from all the injuries. So, I mean, it's one of the ones I'm surprised at. But I mean, if you're just going by form, yeah, I have to agree. He's probably just didn't deserve to go.
No, I'm in agreement. The next one, though, I think had a really good case to go on this tour. That's Gary Ringrose playing for Leinster and for Ireland, partner obviously to Henshaw in the centres, and they worked really well together. He has struggled with injury this season, but I'm pretty surprised not to see him in there. Are you surprised that he's not in the squad?
So. I mean, mainly, as I said, just coming back from injury. He only really just came back against La Rochelle in the semi-finals, didn't he? Yeah. I mean, and I thought he was. I know Leinster lost that game. He was okay, but I mean, yeah, just I thought maybe that was a factor as well. I thought he was one of the 50-50 calls for me. I thought after George North got injured, he would be a bit more of a guarantee to get in. But yeah, I think just coming back from injury, I think has counted against him. And also, I'm not sure if Gatland's the biggest fan of him either because he didn't in 2017 he was a contender and Gatland didn't take him then. So I'm not saying it's a personal thing. I'm just not sure if Gatland sees him as he's Gatland's favourite.
I think Gatland, as we go through the rest of the squad, has picked a very physical side, and maybe Ringrose isn't the most physical centre out there either. I think that could certainly have played into the mind of Gatland. And the final player to miss out is Henry Slade, playing regularly for Exeter, second in the Gallagher Premiership. No Henry Slade. Are you surprised with that one?
Again, I didn't have him in my squad. I just thought there were better options ahead of him. But in terms of versatility and and being a good footballer, and again he's got a big left boot on him as well, so he would have been that option in the centres. But now they've taken Elliot Daly. I think Gatland will see Elliot Daly's versatility as the one to cover that role as the left footer in the back line. But I mean, I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but I mean, he can somewhat consider himself unlucky because he has been playing well for Exeter. He was one of England's better players in the Six Nations. Didn't think he was great, but he wasn't as obviously poor as a lot of the others. So yeah, I mean, not surprised, but a little bit unlucky.
Yeah, indeed. Let's move on to the fly halves. This is where it gets really interesting for me because there's one big name who's missed out, but you're going to be pretty happy with one of the names that have been included. Finn Russell, a maverick of a player, can create something out of nothing. We'll throw that 60-yard pass. We'll put that chip over the top. how happy are you? There's already a massive smile on your face, so I'm sure you're buzzing that he's in.
Yeah, no, I'm delighted for Finn, because especially since listening to podcast Adam Jones was on the other day, and Adam Jones obviously played under Gatland and said, he's definitely not Gatland's type of player. But I think having Gregor Townsend on the coaching team has maybe pushed Gatland's hand a bit to think, okay, this is a player that if it's a tight game, last 20 minutes, for example, he could come on and just create something like that, and then the game's turned and it could go in the Lions' favour possibly. But I think one thing that has really impressed me about him, as well as you've obviously touched on before with how he's played for Racing Metro and how he's been brilliant for them in his attacking sense this season. But the other thing that impressed me about him is just how he's matured with a lot of his tactical kicking and his game awareness. I know the red card against France probably took the shine off that performance a bit, but his actual performance before then was fantastic. Like he was getting the ball in behind. He was getting a good balance of when to kick, when to pass. He was, sort of knowing how to run the clock down intelligently when Stuart Hogg was yellow carded in that game. He's definitely I think matured a lot with the brain side of the game and just how he's causing defenses problems. And he's, I think, more so than the other two fly halves, which obviously we'll get into, he's one of those players as well who has the ability to keep defenders on their toes because they don't know what he's going to do, whether he's going to kick, whether he's going to chuck an inside ball, and then maybe there's a defender away, attacker away, just happening out of nowhere. So, I think that's something I think he could really worry the Springboks, and I'm glad. In my opinion, I think Gatland has seen sense in taking him.
I absolutely agree with everything that you say. He offers something different to the other two. And I think if the third guy that we're going to talk about who's not made it would have been put in, you'd have been thinking they're all very similar in their style and what differentiates them from, don't even know that's how you say it, from each other is there is not that much really. Finn Russell comes with a ball in hand, chips over the top. And as you said, playing in Racing has really improved his game, I think. And it's interesting that because Scottish players have gone abroad on the whole, done okay. You look at the Welsh players who have gone abroad, and the less said about that, the better. Let's move on to the next two then. For me as a Welshman, Dan Biggar obviously had to be in there. He's been playing so well recently for Northampton. Six Nations champion, very good goal kicker, great under the high ball, fantastic defensively as well, likes to get involved. He's probably going to start the first test if you're going off form right now. Dan Biggar, 30 seconds on him, easy decision, right?
I wouldn't have said so a few weeks ago. But no, his form for Northampton, as you say, and he was very solid over the Six Nations. So, he's and I think in the last year as well, he has matured a bit as well, because I used to get really annoyed with him and how he treated referees. I think in the Six Nations and recently for Northampton, he's shown a lot more maturity in that side of his game. So, yeah, I think he, at the moment, would be first choice 10, but again, there's a lot of competition there, so very possible.
Indeed. And maybe a little bit of a controversial one, but we know his quality, but as a captain, maybe not so much. But anyway, Owen Farrell is in there. Owen Farrell playing for Saracens in the Championship, had a pretty poor Six Nations, if we're being totally honest, but Gatland knows him very, very well. He obviously started that Lions tour at 10 against the Barbars, didn't he? So Owen Farrell, thoughts on him? You happy to see him? Surprised, or what's the emotion? What's the reaction?
Not surprised. And as we were saying earlier, with the credit in the bank stuff, he's one who certainly has the credit in the bank. Obviously, captain England to win the Six Nations last year, the Autumn Nations Cup. Captain England to World Cup final. As I say, captain's material that can be debated, and I think we're both in agreement. He's not really a captain, but as a rugby player, he has his liabilities, but he also has his ability to sort of, tactically read a game quite well. And he's obviously the sort of 10-12 option. He can play 10 and 12. So I'm not surprised. I personally wouldn't have picked him, but I thought I kind of knew Gatland was going to anyway. So, yeah.
No, I actually think he's a really, really good player. And I think England needs to seriously consider him as a captain. I think he'd play a lot better. We'd see something similar to what happened with Sam Warburton for Wales, where Warburton was really struggling with the captaincy, and then that went over to Alan Wynne, and we started seeing the best of Warburton once again. The two big absentees, let's talk about the first one. Everyone knows who it is. No Johnny Sexton. lots of injury concerns. We've got to say that, so we do hope he's okay. Obviously, it's a sad situation for such a good player. I think tactically and as a kicker, I think he's outstanding. I think against England, in that game against England, his kicking and his positional kicking and just the way he was putting Ireland in the right area of the pitch was outstanding. And I personally would have taken him on this tour for that reason. I think his goal kicking is brilliant as well. He loves the little wrap around with the scrum half, but it works as well. So, but do you think the injuries are the big concern for Gatland? Do you think that's why he hasn't picked Sexton?
Yes, really. Just again, another bad head knock he picked up for Leinster against Exeter. Yeah, I mean, again, like, you know, sort of, it's sad, but I mean, I understand it, because again, you got to think of the guy's long-term health, and with all the stuff that's coming out in recent times with concussion and players who are, you know, sort of suffering from after effects of playing like 10, 15 years ago, you know, sort of with that. And, you know, I think, again, just, I mean, if he was fit enough, like, you know, sort of, I would have said, yeah, but the thing is also his age as well. You just think, like, you know, all these head knocks he's taken, they're eventually going to take his toll, and you have to think, like, where the importance lies. I understand it's a short career, you know, sort of, so if he was going to be picked, he would have definitely said yes, because he's clearly one of those people who just wants to play. But and he does have a freakish ability actually to get himself fit at the right times in his career, as he showed in the Six Nations, where he got a knock against Wales and played one of the games of his life against England by the end. But no, I think, like, you know, sort of, it comes to a point where it's taken its toll, and I think Gatland probably sees him too much of a risk, especially, as I said before we went on air, up against the Springboks, who aren't exactly the lightest tacklers in the world, are they? So, you know, they're not. There's going to be definitely, I think, like, you know, looking to target Sexton where they can with that, and, you know, sort of, they're not going to be, you know, showing any sentiment once the whistle goes, of course. So, yeah, just again, I think a health and safety thing, it's probably the right decision.
No, it's a sad situation for Sexton. I think he's a quality player, but the injuries are really concerning for him. And as you said, it's about what's important in life, and maybe he needs to start thinking about that. I'm not saying he needs to retire or anything like that, but what I'm saying is he needs to start thinking about those things. Yeah, in my view, that's you know, up to him. I understand he does have a young family, and obviously up to him and his doctor. But yeah, I mean, yeah, as I said, health and safety comes first, and, you know, as I think we're both agreeing, a sensible decision. Yeah, agreed, definitely. The only other 10 I could really think that, I don't even think he'd consider himself unlucky to not be in there, but obviously he's playing for England at 10. We've got to mention him, is George Ford. Thoughts on George Ford? Do you think he was ever really in contention to get into the squad with the others in front of him? I think he was. You know, I think he had a few moments in the Six Nations where he did show some spark and some ability. Obviously, his performance for Leicester in the semi-final against Ulster was outstanding, and I think that was. But I think he maybe left it a bit late with regards to being in contention for the Lions by then. So some might disagree with me there. That's fine. But I think, yeah, I mean, just an outside chance. I mean, I think he has had his moments where he's pushed his case. But overall, yeah, I think the 310s plus Sexton, who's obviously not going, like, we're always going to be just ahead of him. No, agreed. And yeah, I just think the others ahead of him are probably better options. The final three backs that we have to talk about are the scrum half positions. So we have three scrum halves. Gareth Davies, first of all, Wales and Scarlet. If I'm being totally honest, I don't think he's been playing all that well recently. A tough one, but with the likes, you know, of, we'll get to some others in a second who maybe not played all that much rugby and maybe aren't playing international rugby. I think Gareth Davies was pretty much a shoo-in, especially after Ben Youngs ruled himself out. More or less, yes. And Gatland seems to have a liking for him. I still hold the opinion that his pass for a number 9 at international level is average at best. But as a player, like, his strengths, obviously, he's a very quick scrum half. He's a good sniper, a good interceptor. 50-50 with his box kicking, so that's something that the coaching team will need to be working on with him. As we know, like, you know, if you kick loosely against the box, they're going to cause you a lot of problems. So yeah, I mean, I think somewhat lucky. One could argue maybe Kieran Hardy could have been possibly ahead of him with it, because I think he played better against
against England than Davis did like when he played in the Six Nations. So, yeah, I mean, I think more a reputation thing and Gatland's liking, pardon me.
Ali Price, a Scottish scrum half, is in there. Over a few different players, could have looked at other players. Ali Price, your thoughts on him? Do you think he had a good Six Nations, or do you think it's maybe, I don't know, I'm not convinced by him. That's what I'm saying. Can you change my mind?
50-50 for me. He played well against England. He played well against France. Less so against, I say less so. Against Wales, he played pretty well up until after Xander Ferguson got sent off. And against Ireland, it just, again, like, sort of, I think it was really sort of, he was quite naive with that penalty at the end. Ireland got to win it with his charge down kick. I think sometimes he can still dawdle a bit too much at the base. I think sometimes his box kicking needs a little bit. It does need work, but he showed that, as he showed against France, he does have that performance in him. But I mean, I think also his intelligence at important times. I mean, I think generally it's not too bad, but important times like against Wales, where Scotland were 24-20 up, and then he kicked the ball up into the air when it either should have kept it in hand or booted it as far down the pitch as possible. And he basically booted it high back to Wales, and it allowed for Louis Rees-Zammit to go and score the winning try that game. And then later on, when it was 78 minutes and we had the ball, he just kicked it away. And then they more or less lost us the game, a chance of getting the game back, I mean. So, yeah, I think it's stuff he needs to work on, but I think he does have ability. I'm hoping he does, sort of learn a lot from this tour as well, because I can't see him being the starting 9.
No, I can't see him being the starting 9, but I don't hate the inclusion. I think he actually offers quite a bit. Probably the starting 9 at the minute would be Conor Murray, who's obviously been brought into the squad, playing well for Munster, had a decent Six Nations for Ireland. And I actually think he'll suit the way that we want to play against the South Africans quite a bit. I think there's going to be a lot of kicking. And although people say they don't like the amount that he box kicks, I actually think he's a very good box kicker.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be quite important. So Conor Murray, your thoughts on him? No surprise, was there, that he was in there?
No, not at all. I mean, obviously he's had a tough couple of years where he's not been, sort of at his best post getting injured in 2018. But I think in the last few months or so, he's been starting to come good again, bar one game in the Pro 14 final for Munster against Leinster. But apart from that, he's been looking good, playing well again. And as well as his box kicking, he's got a lightning pass as well. And again, if he can fizz that out to a backline that can be creative, that's going to cause the box a lot of problems. And he's definitely, I think, the most accurate box kicker of the 9s going. Yeah. So inevitable call, really.
Yeah, inevitable. 3 scrum halves who missed out for me. First off, Thomas Williams started the Six Nations really well. Was probably the starting scrum half for Wales, but then got an injury. I think the big thing for him is he's just not played enough rugby. I think that's the big thing. And you look at the others, they've all 3 been consistently playing over the past year or so when rugby has been on. Thomas Williams, the only thing about him is maybe the 3 scrum halves lack a little bit of, I think Gareth Davis is the closest. That would be similar to Thomas Williams in the way he likes to snipe around the breakdown. But would Thomas Williams have added something a bit different, do you think?
I think Thomas Williams is a better passer than Gareth Davis. I think, I actually think he does, in open play, offer better support lines than Davis does as well. So, I mean, but as you say, maybe not played enough rugby, maybe because he's not been the starting Wales 9 towards the end of the Six Nations that probably would have been a factor as well.
Indeed. The next one, though, is an interesting one. Someone who's not getting into his national team, but as we get on later, we will find out another one, but he's been put in the squad. But this one hasn't. John Cooney. Thoughts on Cooney? Very good goal kicker. Probably one of the best scrum halves in the Pro 14. I never felt like he was really in the conversation, though.
Yeah, I had him in my squad, and I stand by that I'd have him. Just mention his goal kicking, his passing. I mean, his passing is very, very, very quick for a 9. He runs excellent support lines as well. So you can just cut, And again, I think I stand by the view that I think he's been probably the form 9 in the Northern Hemisphere for the last over a year, a bit, apart from Antoine Dupont of France, of course. Sadly, he's not eligible because he would have been ahead of all the others, no doubt about that. But no, I think, the fact that Andy Farrell doesn't seem to like him. He's not playing for Ireland. That's, I think, his biggest drawback here. But as we know, there's another player going on this tour that a certain other national coach doesn't take a liking to, who will be there. So we can get onto that later.
Yeah, indeed. Cooney, for me, I don't know. I never felt like the fanfare about him was all that big. I never felt like it was, to be honest, with him going on this Lions tour potentially. The only other player was Danny Kerr. We won't speak much on him, but he was rumoured to potentially be going. But, it never felt like that was concrete either. Are your thoughts on Danny Kerr?
Again, I mean, playing very well for Harlequins this season. But yeah, no, I think like very outside chance. The fact he's 34 as well. It's a big step up to go from the Gallagher Premiership to just straight into a Lions series. Yeah. So very, very outside chance, I say, yeah. Yeah,
definitely. Right, let's move on to the forwards then. Let's move to the front row. So there's a few interesting choices in there. We'll go through them really quick because I'm aware of time as well. We've been going for 40 minutes on this one. In the front row then. So a quick word on each one, and then we'll have a quick chat about some players who missed out. Let's go with Jamie George, first of all. Saracens, England. Not played all that much rugby. Probably not the first choice for England, but he is a quality player, isn't he?
Yes, going back again to the credit in the bank conversation. Third time I've mentioned this now, actually. But yeah, no, just, one of those players, I think if Gatland can get fit and in form in time for that first test, he's got every chance of, I think, at least making the bench. At the moment, he wouldn't be in the test side. I think the other two hookers going there ahead of him. But, how he played in 2017 and just what a good player he is, like around the pitch and especially in the scrums. Like if you can get him in form, he's not been in his best form this season. But I think it's not surprising the fact he's experienced as well, played in his favour.
Yeah, definitely. Next up is Andrew Porter, Ireland and Leinster. Can play loose head or tight head. Do you think that's the big reason why he's in there?
Not really, because they've taken 3 tight heads and taken 3 loose heads as well. So it doesn't surprise me because he has been going well for Ireland and Leinster. Obviously worthy noting as well that what Robin McBride, the forwards coach, obviously works with the Leinster forwards regularly. So I think you would have seen his quality there. And so I think that was a big factor as to why he's going to.
The next one is closer to you, obviously Xander Fagerson. Interesting that he's in the squad. Your thoughts on Xander getting him, because he got that red card in the Six Nations, but we know his quality anyway. What are your thoughts on Xander Fagerson deserving of his place?
My heart says yes. My head's 50-50. I mean, we know like his quality. We saw how he played in the last 2 games of the Six Nations against Italy and France when he returned from suspension. He was excellent in both those games. I think one thing, I'm a bit surprised he was picked ahead of Kyle Sinclair. Because I think like Xander, he can have those moments where he's having a great game, and he's definitely improved on his scrummaging in the last year and a bit for Scotland and for Glasgow. And the one thing that sort of gets me is still sometimes he can have those games where the red mist seems to descend, and he just gives away stupid penalties. Obviously what he did to win Jones, was more just kind of a bit, clumsy more than anything else, because he should have gone lower down. If he'd gone lower down, he wouldn't have been red carded. He does have that side about him, and also sometimes he can get into scraps as well when he doesn't really need to. But no, I think overall his ability as a scrummager and all around the pitch, and how he can be a nuisance for opponents as well, would be definitely worthy of consideration.
Definitely. Furlong is the next one. Very obvious why he's in there. Probably the best in his position. And if you can step Finn Russell like that, then you've got to be in there. A quick word on Furlong. He's starting, isn't he, as well?
Oh, yeah. First choice, without a doubt. As you say, the best tight head in the British and Irish Isles. Still been playing well for Leinster. I know he had an injury earlier this season, but he came back from that very strongly. Showed his quality and coming into good form at the right time.
Indeed. Let's move on to Wyn Jones, Wales and Scarlets. Probably one of the best players for Wales and kind of come out of nowhere over the last couple of years, really, for Wales. I think he's a brilliant player in the loose, gets involved at the breakdown as well, scrummages well. No surprise from him, probably starting alongside Furlong, would you think, in that front row?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think there'll be the first choice, two first choice props. You forgot to mention, obviously, Wyn Jones's face, how there's big forwards who love to smash into it. So I think if he pisses off another South African like he did against France for Wales in the Six Nations, depending on the score at the time, of course, it could be like a bit of luck going the Lions' way, maybe. But no, I think, they'd be the first choice tight head and loose head prop, Furlong and Wyn Jones. But no, you're right in that, sort of he seems to have come out of nowhere. He's improved over, especially during the Six Nations. He definitely improved over that period of time with, being a very good scrummager, good ball carrying prop as well, works hard around the pitch. So yeah, definitely deserves to go.
Yeah, for sure deserves to go. Let's head over again to Scotland. Rory Sutherland, another prop option. Thoughts on Rory Sutherland? For me, an interesting one, this one.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's going, considering he's still injured. He's not expected to be fit until around about the Japan game, and even Richard Cockrell said that'll be touch and go. But no, I thought, because he last year I think he was one of the best loose head props in Britain. Just how he's another one like Wyn Jones with Wales. For Scotland, Rory Sutherland just seemed to have kind of come out of nowhere. He was picked like a number of years back, I think, under Vern Cotter, and then he had a succession of injuries, and he really struggled to keep himself fit. And then in the 2020 Six Nations, he was our first choice. Yeah, no, I'm pleased. From a Scottish point of view, I'm pleased he's going, but I wasn't expecting to go.
Very experienced at this level, obviously, for the Lions. Mako Vunipola, thoughts on him going? Do you think his credit in the bank once again?
Yes, just that. I thought, obviously, as we know, a quality player on his day, but during the Six Nations, I thought he looked absolutely knackered. I mean, the game against France, he came off after 50. We both watched. He came off there for 50 minutes. He just looked like, it's like I just looked at it and thought, you look so unfit. I mean, and he came off against Ireland at halftime as well. And I think Eddie Jones must have seen that he wasn't fit enough. But I know he's been playing for Saracens again. And again, if Gatland can get him fit and well and in good shape in time for the first test, he's a quality player. But another credit in the bank, absolutely.
Definitely. Let's move on to some hooker options then. We got Ken Owens in there. Do you think he's pushing to start? Because for me, I thought he was brilliant over the Six Nations.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, improved, as we've mentioned before, improved a lot with his line-out throwing throughout the Six Nations. Very decent ball carrier. And just all around very good player. I think he will be the first choice hooker, but I expect there will be competition, of course. So yeah.
Indeed. And the final hooker, then the final prop, is Luke Cowan-Dickie, probably England's number one choice hooker now, ahead of Jamie George, playing very well for Exeter. No surprise to see him in there, is there?
Not at all. Fully deserves to go. And like with Anthony Watson, one of England's brighter sparks from the Six Nations, he's been playing brilliantly for Exeter as well. One of those players, I think, he's got excellent hands and feet. Looks like he's got a good offload on him. Reads the game very well. So I think he could push. I think Ken Owens is still the starting hooker, but I think Luke Cowan-Dickie will be pushing him close going into that first test.
No, I agree, definitely. I think Cowan-Dickie has been fantastic recently, and Ken Owens is great, but he's maybe a little bit limited in what he can do. And I think maybe Luke Cowan-Dickie would offer a little bit more. The big absentees in the front row, really. Quick words on each. Ellis Genge, rumoured to not being involved yesterday. That was rumoured pretty heavily that he hadn't received any kind of communication on the move and heading over to South Africa. Ellis Genge, for you, unlucky to miss out, or do you just think there are better options?
I think unlucky. I've had a thought about this the past few weeks. I would have actually had him above Mako, just on form and fitness right now. And obviously, similar to George Ford, he had a fantastic game for Leicester against Ulster in the European Semi-Cup, European Challenge Semi-Cup. So, another one is just unlucky. Yeah.
No. Next up then, Kyle Sinclair, Bristol Bears and England. For me, I think he is unlucky, but I do worry about his hot-headedness. And I think, obviously, Alan Wynne had a great time with him when they met recently. That was always good fun to watch. But do you think he's unlucky to miss out? Or do you think maybe Gatland's got that in the back of his mind that is his head really all there?
I'm surprised, I have to say. I mean, because I thought... during the Six Nations, he was, until the Ireland game, he was looking like he was starting to starting to come good. And then the Ireland game, he just seemed to fall to pieces.
And the last name you threw out, which was a very outside shout, was Thomas Francis, playing for Exeter, joining the Ospreys, of course. I think we're both in agreement that this was not going to happen. So we'll move on from Thomas Francis. Let's move to the locks then. So we have Ian Henderson, first of all, of Ulster and Ireland. Thought he had a very good Six Nations campaign. Your thoughts on Ian Henderson? Happy to see him in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Another one on form who's been absolutely brilliant. Really, I think pretty much sealed his place as Ireland's first choice second row option. Captained them very well, even though they lost to France, I thought. And I think one of the inevitable ones, I'd say, who'd be on the tour.
Definitely. Next to him is an interesting one. Johnny Hill of Exeter in England, not starting regularly for England, had a few caps, playing in a very good Exeter team. Maybe lucky to stay on the pitch against Leinster. But anyway, Johnny Hill, one of the worst mullets in rugby, but thoughts on him?
I'm surprised that he's ahead of both James Ryan and Johnny Gray. Yeah. I honestly thought, I think James Ryan's not going, but we can get onto that later if you want, but just because of his recent head injury problems. But I'm surprised that Johnny Hill, because even though he's been going well for Exeter, I thought he was an outside chance. But did show against Bristol recently, he can kick a ball 60 metres. Maybe that was in Gatland's thinking. Maybe that was in Gatland's thinking, sort of 10 minutes to go. We need to make sure we've got as many kickers on the pot as possible to keep the box on the back foot.
Indeed. Really interesting addition there. Maro Itoje is the next name. Not much surprise there. He's a class act, in my opinion. Sometimes crosses the line with his penalties and stuff like that, but he probably is going to be starting, you'd assume anyway, in the test alongside who we'll get to next. But Itoje, for you, no surprise there?
Not at all. Again, the credit in the bank argument can come back. It seems to be all the Saracens players we're talking about having this credit in the bank thing. But no, I think, it was inevitable. Maro was always going to go. I think if you can get him on his day, he's one of the best second rows in the world. If you can get him playing like he did against France this past Six Nations, against New Zealand at the World Cup, against New Zealand at the last Lions tour, he's going to be inevitably starting the test. I think I still would have Tadhg Beirne and your god in Wales as the second row pairing, I expect it to be Maro, and I expect him to be motivated enough to come good at the right times on this tour.
Indeed. Yeah, let's talk about the god then. Sir,
your god.
I'll build him a statue when he retires. I'll do it by hand. I'll spend years doing it. I don't mind. Alan Wynne-Jones, captain of the tour. And rightly so. Everyone knew that last night anyway, but what a player, what a man. Thoughts on Alan Wynne?
I can't really add anything that you haven't said probably about 50 times over already, Brandon. I think the inevitable choice goes down in history, of course, with the great second rows who captained the Lions, obviously Willie John McBride, Martin Johnson, Paul O'Connell. So he's the first Welsh lot great of that caliber, of that class, I should say, to be now Lions captain, and fully deserved. Just reputation, career, how he handles himself as well on and off the pitch. Just absolute model professional, and fully deserves and the obvious choice for the captaincy.
I think he encompasses everything that the Lions would want in a captain on and off the field. As you said, he'll be the ultimate professional all the time. And the way you're speaking today, even, as he was announced as the captain, completely professional and very humble in the way that he was speaking. The next one is a really interesting one. I've put him in the locks, but he could play in the back row or he could play in this position. Courtney Laws, an interesting addition, not playing regularly for England at all. Thoughts on Courtney Laws? He's a big boy, isn't he? So do you think that's the big thinking, the physicality is what Gatland wants?
Yeah, and going back, I know this isn't a Saracens player, but it's going back to the credit in the bank argument. But his ability as a player, and if Gatland can get him fit again, because I know he's still injured right now, he's a player who's, sort of just the weight he puts into his tackles, the work rate he puts in around the pitch, the nuisance he can be at the breakdown for opponents, and he's obviously a very solid line-out operator as well. So, I think, that he was, if he could be fit, he was always going to be in with a very good shout. So, and again, as I was saying, if Gatland can get him up to full fitness again, he's going to be definitely a contender for the test side, but we'll see.
Indeed, we shall see. 2 absentees for me, maybe even potentially a third, but very unlikely. But Johnny Gray, unlucky to miss out, do you think?
As I've said in my videos, Brandon, I didn't expect him to go. I thought James Ryan would be just ahead of him, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm surprised that Johnny Hill's considered ahead of him as well. So, I think compared to Johnny Hill, you could say he was just unlucky to miss out because he has been playing very well for Exeter, and he got injured for Scotland against Ireland as well, but before then, he was a very reliable performer for us. So, unlucky, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's quite unlucky. And a lot of these players, anyway, will be likely to fly out there when injuries start building up and things like that start happening. They'll be likely to head out there. And as you said, you just mentioned him, James Ryan could certainly consider himself unlucky. As you said, he's had a couple of head injuries recently, which could play into the minds of the coaching staff. Would you taken James Ryan, or would that concern with head injuries played into your mind?
I would have taken him. Again, another one if you can get him fit. But, just because he has had a couple of bad head knocks, he only just really came back playing for Leinster against La Rochelle at the weekend. He didn't look back to his best at all. And, I think, and similar to Sexton and the head knock front, probably just coming into Gatland's thinking there. But, he can...
Definitely. Let's move on to the back row. We'll fly through these. The first name that is really interesting to me is Jack Conan. Playing very well for Leinster, not regularly playing for Ireland all that much. Thoughts on Jack Conan over CJ Stander, maybe? So Jack Conan, thoughts on him?
Yeah, no, as you say, he's been playing very well for Leinster this season. Coming very good for Ireland, I have to say. When he played against England in the Six Nations, he was outstanding. I think he was man of the match that game. I stand to be corrected. I can't really remember, but I remember just thinking that game he was outstanding. And going to South Africa on the hard ground, he's a very powerful ball carrier as well. I think Gatland saw that in him, sort of just that ability. And, obviously he's and also the fact he's an out-and-out 8 as well. I know that the 2 other 8s are going, so I'd say, can play across the back row a bit more, whereas Jack Conan is a more out-and-out 8, sort of he's, can be brutal with his carries, but he's also got like good hands on him, good intelligence with how he plays, and I think on form, I think you have to say he deserves it. I didn't really have him in my team or in my conversations about who would be going in terms of the back row, but well done to him.
No, indeed. Next up, probably going to be starting at 8 for the Lions is Talupe Faletau, one of the best in the world in his position, has been coming into form of recent times with the Six Nations and for Bath. He's just quality, isn't he?
Yeah, another credit in the bank there. No. No, I agree with you. I think his only real time he's let himself and his team down lately was that yellow card he got against France in the Six Nations. But no, aside from that, he's been excellent. He's been obviously back from injury. He's had a horrendous time of injury since the last Lions tour, and we all know the last Lions tour. He had an excellent tour then too. So yeah, I think as you say, looking like to be the starting 8 at the moment, but he'll know himself. He'll have to be coming into his best form, going into the test. But no, I mean, inevitably, he was always going to go. Great player.
And the person that could be challenging him is an interesting one, not being picked by England. Very, very interesting. Sam Simmonds. He's been so good for Exeter over the past couple of years, and I cannot understand why he's not in that England squad. Definitely picked over Billy Vunipola. So Simmonds deserving of his place, or do you think there'll be concerns because he hasn't shown at international level yet?
He's defending European Player of the Year. He's shown for Exeter consistently. He's got something like 12, 13 tries for them this season. I think he's just got an all-round game, and I don't understand this argument at all that, he doesn't fit into Eddie's plans. It's like, well, it's bloody working with Billy, isn't it? He's been absolutely, raving lately for England. Billy Vunipola has been absolutely rubbish lately. I make no apologies for saying that. But no, I mean, I agree. I don't get that argument at all. And the way he's been playing for Exeter, you could argue he had one bit of a hiccup in that Champions Cup quarter final against Leinster, where he wasn't at his best there, but he's still just consistently been performing. I think I think he's got it in him. He shows ability-wise he can play at the highest level, and he knows himself he'll have to, in the warm-up games, prove that he can really be ready to push himself for that test number 8 spot. I think it will be between him and Faletau, as we've touched on. But no, I think he will be pushing for it, and and as we see with his abilities, he's a very good player. Capable of playing at 6 and 7 as well because of his athleticism and his abilities over the ball at the breakdown sometimes. So, no, definitely deserving to go.
No, 100%. Let's go to our time now because I'm aware of time. Justin Tipuric and Hamish Watson. I'll cover Tipuric if you want to cover your God. Justin Tipuric, obviously.
Hail the mesh. Hail the mesh.
Indeed. Tipuric, over the Six Nations, very, very good. Getting back to his form, I'd like to see him in a little bit more of an attacking role, but under Gatland, that's very unlikely to happen. So no surprise there. Go on, tell me about Hamish Watson. He's too small, apparently.
Oh yeah, said by that pathetic excuse of a journalist, Stephen Jones. He probably won't watch this, but if he does, then I make no apologies. You are that. Sorry if a load of brunt of abuse. No, actually, loads of folk think Stephen Jones is rubbish, so I'm not sorry for that. Sorry, Brant. But no, yeah, I mean, just player of the Six Nations, one of the best, better mullet than Johnny Hill, and I'll be after anyone who says otherwise. And just fantastic. And anyone who says he's too small for international rugby, doesn't know what they're talking about. He showed against France, he had moments where he had big lumps like Une Antonio trying to tackle him, and he just ducked his way out of him and just went straight through. As I've said before, with you, one of those players you could just offer something different to the other back rowers, as well as his ability over the ball. He's got excellent feet, excellent ability to be nifty, and he would give the big South African forwards a different looking to a lot of the other players that would be options there. And I just think, he's a contender for the test. I'm not sure if he'll get into the test yet, but no, I mean, just absolutely inevitable he was going to be going. And shut up Stephen Jones and anyone who says he's too small for international rugby.
No, I agree with you. He's been quality. And if you're a player of the Six Nations, then you just got to be in the squad. And then the final back row is Byrne of Ireland. Brilliant over the ball. 15 seconds on Byrne. Happy that he's in there?
Fully deserved, yes. My personal pick for player of the recent Six Nations. Again, very versatile, very powerful, very athletic. And, it was inevitable he was going to go.
Definitely. Let's quickly fly through the absentees because there's some big ones in the back row. Let's start with Josh Navidi. I'm pretty surprised he's not in there. Your thoughts on Navidi? Are you surprised? Or do you just think there's a few better players ahead of him right now?
I did say to you before, I think he would be one of the unlucky ones. He is unlucky, though. I think I fully get why folk would have had him in. I mean, I had him in my squad as well, a 40, but. Pardon me. I think, he's just unlucky. I think they're just maybe just the power factor with with Conan, Simmonds, Faletau. Sort of possible. Tipuric, you could argue as well. Just we're just ahead of him. He's just narrowly misses out.
Yeah. One player we thought would maybe have his swan song for the Lions and finish his career here in the Northern Hemisphere. CJ Stander, no place for him in the squad. Surprisingly, he didn't get in over Conan, or do you think it was the right decision?
A bit surprised, mainly just because of his international experience and his ability to be consistent over the international career that he has. But yeah, I mean, Warren Gatland, as he showed in 2013 when he dropped Brian O'Driscoll, he's not one for sentiments. He's one who, like, knows how to put his head over heart. Like, you could argue whether it matter, whether this is right or wrong in this situation. I don't know, but no, I do feel a bit sorry for Stander because he's had a great career, but yeah, I mean, in terms of form as a number 8 for at club level, you have to say Conan is ahead of him. But in international jersey, then Standard consistency should have been in the conversation. But he's just another one like Navidi, just unlucky.
We've already mentioned Billy Vunipola, so we'll skip over him. But we're both in agreement that it's the right thing. He's just not been playing particularly well. One more name for you, Jamie Ritchie. Thoughts on Jamie Ritchie? Do you think he was ever in the conversation? Because I think he's massively underrated.
I thought he was. I mean, last year I did compare him to Richard Hill. I think our version of Richard Hill, I'm not saying he's as good a player as Richard Hill was in his prime, but yeah, no, I think just, someone who's like, excellent around the pitch, like, very athletic, good at the breakdown. Another one like the others we just mentioned, just unlucky, I think. Yeah, but I mean, from a Scottish point of view, like I'm hoping if there's an injury, he'd be considered, but also I'd have him as the Scotland captain going into our summer tour. We don't need to get into conversation about that, of course, but yeah, just from a Lions point of view, just unfortunate, really. You forgot to mention Tom Curry, though.
Oh, of course, Tom Curry. Yeah, Tom Curry's in there, deservedly so. Thoughts on Curry quickly?
Agreed, deservedly so. One of England's better players in the Six Nations, has a good reputation to back him up as well, and yeah, deserves to be there.
Absolutely. Well, there we go. That's our reaction and our review of the Lions squad that's been picked. 37-man squad has been picked to tour South Africa this summer. If you have enjoyed, make sure to subscribe here on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, to myself and Kyle, there'll be a link to Kyle's channel in the description down below. If you're listening on your audio platforms, make sure to give it a like and give us a nice review. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you soon here on the Breakdown Podcast.